The coffee cup trembled in her hand just slightly, but enough that the liquid nearly spilled over the rim. Sarah Mitchell had been working at the Veterans Center for 3 years now, serving coffee, cleaning tables, blending into the background like wallpaper, and that's exactly how she wanted it. The smell of bitter coffee and old leather chairs had become her comfort, her anonymity, her escape from a past she'd buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself it never existed. But then he walked in. Admiral James Cordell, decorated, respected, a man whose face had been on the cover of every military magazine, stood in the doorway, scanning the room with eyes that had seen too much. And when those eyes landed on her, everything stopped. She turned away quickly, pretending to wipe down a table that was already clean, her pulse hammering in her throat. It had been 12 years since she'd worn the uniform. 12 years since she'd climbed into the cockpit of an Apache helicopter and felt the rotors shudder to life beneath her. 12 years since the crash that killed her co-pilot and best friend, Lieutenant Marcus Chen, and left her with scars that no one could see. She'd walked away from it all, the medals, the ceremonies, the title of captain, the call sign that once made her feel invincible. Phoenix 9. The name didn't belong to her anymore. That woman died the same day Marcus did. But the Admiral didn't look away. He stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum floor, each step louder than the last, until he was standing right in front of her. She kept her eyes down, focused on the rag in her hand, on the table, on anything but him. Ski. His voice low and gravelly, the kind of voice that commanded respect without raising a decibel. Could I get a cup of coffee? She nodded, still not meeting his gaze, and turned toward the counter. Her hands moved on autopilot, pouring the dark liquid, adding cream, stirring, anything to keep busy, to keep the walls up. But then he spoke again. Phoenix 9. The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Her hand froze mid-stir. The spoon clinked against the porcelain too loud in the sudden silence. How did he know? She forced herself to breathe, to turn around, to face him. His eyes weren't hard or accusatory. They were something worse, understanding. I'm sorry, sir, I think you have me confused with someone else, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But he shook his head slowly, and that's when she saw it. His hands, they were shaking. Not a lot, but enough. Enough that this man, this decorated war hero who'd led entire battalions into combat without flinching, was struggling to hold himself together. No, he said quietly, I don't. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges, creased from being opened and closed too many times. He placed it on the counter between them, smoothing it out with those trembling fingers. It was a mission report. Her mission report. Her mission report. The one from 12 years ago. The one that ended with 2 helicopters down, 4 crew members dead, and her barely alive, pulled from the wreckage with burns covering 30% of her body. You saved my son that night, the Admiral said, and his voice cracked just a little. Lieutenant Cordell, you didn't know his last name, but you pulled him out of the fire. You went back into that burning wreck twice, once for him, once for Chen. You couldn't save Marcus, but you saved my boy. Sarah's throat tightened, her eyes burning. She remembered. God. She remembered. God. She remembered. The heat, the screaming metal, the way the flames licked at her skin as she dragged the unconscious lieutenant through the smoke. She remembered collapsing afterward, the medic shouting, the darkness swallowing her whole. But she didn't know. She never knew who he was. Just another soldier. Just another life. He talks about you, the Admiral continued, his voice steadier now, but his eyes glistening. Every year on the anniversary, he lights a candle for you, for Phoenix 9. He tried to find you, but you disappeared, changed your name, left the service. We thought, he paused, swallowing hard. We thought maybe you didn't make it after all. Not really. She couldn't speak. The lump in her throat was too big, the guilt too heavy. She'd spent 12 years hating herself for surviving, for failing Marcus, for not being strong enough to keep flying. But this man, this father, was standing in front of her with tears in his eyes, telling her she'd saved his son. He's outside, the Admiral said softly. He's been afraid to come in. Afraid you wouldn't want to see him, but he needs to thank you. We both do. Sarah looked past him, through the glass doors, and saw a man standing on the sidewalk. Tall, broad-shouldered, a little older now, but unmistakable. He was staring at the ground, hands shoved deep in his pockets, and even from here she could see he was nervous. For 12 years, she'd hidden. For 12 years she'd hidden. For 12 years, she'd believed she was nothing more than a ghost haunting a life she didn't deserve. But maybe, just maybe, she wasn't a ghost. Maybe she was exactly what her call sign always said she was. A phoenix. Something that rises from the ashes. Something that survives. She set down the coffee cup, untied her apron, and walked toward the door. The Admiral followed, his hands still shaking, but his face filled with something she hadn't seen in a long time. She stepped outside. Lieutenant Cordell looked up. Their eyes met. And for the first time in 12 years, Sarah Mitchell smiled. "Phoenix 9 reporting," she said quietly, and he smiled back, tears streaming down his face. "Welcome home."